What happens when you put 80,000 plus Romans, 2 bickering consuls, and 1 undefeated supervillain of military history onto the same dusty plain and tell them to just sort it out? It's dawn, August 2nd, 216 BC, near the little town of Cannae in southern Italy. The Aufidus River glows in the early light, and the air is already hot enough to cook a legionary in his armor. On one side of the river, Consul Gaius Terentius Varro wakes up and chooses violence. Again? Varro has roughly 86,000 Romans and Italian allies crammed into his camp. Heavy infantry, allied contingents, a token amount of cavalry, and enough ego to terraform Mars. In Varro's brain, the math is simple. More Romans equals more stabbing. More stabbing equals easy win. Easy win equals Varro the Great trending all over the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, the other consul, Lucius Aemilius Paullus, is giving off strong, this is a terrible idea energy. They command on alternate days. Today, it's Varro's turn. Of course it is. Across the river sits Hannibal Barca, serial Roman nightmare and part-time elephant enthusiast. His army is smaller, maybe 40,000, 50,000 men, a mix of Iberians, Gauls, Africans, and cavalry. But what he lacks in numbers, he compensates with tactical genius and a very worrying sense of calm. Hannibal looks at the Roman camp, bursting with red shields and standards, and thinks, perfect, they brought everyone. Rome has already lost big at Trebia and Lake Trasimene, but instead of learning anything, the Senate has decided to simply bring more guys. This is the ancient equivalent of losing ranked games and saying, one more, I swear I can win this back. As the sun climbs, Varro forms his army into a massive, dense block of infantry so tightly packed, you could probably walk across their helmets without touching the ground. Varro's plan is simple. We walk forward and crush them. No subtlety, no finesse, just one big, angry red rectangle of doom. On the far side, Hannibal's line begins to move into a strange, bulging formation. His center pushed forward, his African infantry drawn back like tucked-in wings. Varro sees it and smiles. Hannibal is offering his center. This, Varro thinks, is it, the big win, the heroic statue moment. He has no idea he's marching 80,000 Romans straight into history's most famous killbox. The Roman army begins to move. Slowly at first, then like a giant red steamroller of iron, sweat, and terrible life choices. In front of them, Hannibal's line looks weird. The center, a mix of Gauls and Iberians, is pushed forward into a convex bulge, like a belly asking to be punched. The Romans look at it and collectively think, nice, free kills. On the wings, Hannibal's African heavy infantry are pulled back, slightly refused, almost like they're not in a hurry. They look disciplined, calm, and extremely bad news. Then there's the cavalry. On the Carthaginian left, near the river, Hasdrubal leads the Iberian and Gallic cavalry, aggressive, loud, and very excited, to bully Roman horsemen. Opposite them, the Roman cavalry is fine, not terrible, but very much not ready for what's coming. On Hannibal's right, the Numidian cavalry under Maharbal wait with their trademark hit-and-run style, light armor, fast horses, and the energy of guys who live to third-party every fight. The Romans don't care about formation art or clever geometry. Varro has packed his infantry deep, maybe 16-20 ranks. That's overkill in every sense. The front ranks will do all the fighting, the back ranks will do all the screaming. Then the trumpets blast. The Roman front slams into Hannibal's forward curve of Gauls and Iberians. Steel crashes, shields smash, and the center begins to fall back slowly, deliberately, step by bloody step. From the Roman perspective, this is perfect. The enemy is breaking. The line is folding inward, leaving what looks like a glorious path straight to victory. From Hannibal's perspective, the front phase of the trap is working beautifully. The Romans push harder. They think they're winning. Technically, what they're really doing is walking themselves deeper into the pocket. The Roman infantry is now fully committed. The massive red block shoves forward, crushing Hannibal's Gauls and Iberians in the center. Men are dying, yes, but importantly, they are dying backwards, in a controlled retreat. The Romans interpret this as, we're winning, obviously. Standard Roman doctrine. If the enemy is moving backward, push harder. So the Roman bloc compresses even more. The rear ranks surge forward, the front ranks get shoved deeper into the fighting, and individual Romans now have roughly the personal space of a sardine in a crowded bathhouse. While this is happening in the center, disaster is brewing on the Roman cavalry flank. On the Roman right, Hasdrubal's Iberian and Gallic cavalry smash into the Roman horsemen. The barbarians fight like it's their favorite hobby. The Romans fight like they had hoped to be anywhere else. The Roman cavalry breaks. Not tactical withdrawal, not orderly fallback. They run. Hasdrubal does not chase them far. He turns his cavalry, circles behind the Roman army, and rides off to help Maharbal on the other flank. Because nothing says good morning like being hit in the back by thousands of angry horsemen. On the Roman left, the Numidian cavalry under Maharbal have been doing their usual thing, harassing, feinting, throwing javelins, refusing to stand still like responsible duel partners. Now, with Hasdrubal's cavalry joining in, the remaining Roman horse are overwhelmed and swept away. And now comes the key moment. With Roman cavalry gone on both flanks, Hannibal owns the sky. Hasdrubal and Maharbal wheel their horsemen around the rear of the Roman infantry block, like wolves circling a very large, very confused herd. At the same time, Hannibal gives the signal. The Carthaginian center, which has been slowly bending backward, stops retreating. The African infantry on both wings now wheel inward, pivoting like closing doors. The Romans haven't just met Hannibal's army. They are now inside Hannibal's geometry lesson. The Romans suddenly realize something is wrong. Not philosophically, physically. The Carthaginian wings of African infantry slam inward on both sides, shields locked, spears stabbing. The slowly retreating center stops yielding ground. And behind them, a growing thunder of hooves announces that the cavalry has arrived in exactly the worst possible place, their rear. This is the legendary double envelopment, one of the cleanest, nastiest tactical flexes in all of military history. For the Romans in the center, it's less brilliant maneuver and more, why can I suddenly feel spears from literally every direction? They're packed so tightly that many can't even swing their swords properly. The front ranks are crushed against Hannibal's infantry. The flanks are being chewed up by African spearmen. The rear is suddenly full of Iberian, Gallic, and Numidian cavalry, gleefully cutting down anyone trying to run. The sun climbs higher, the dust thickens, the air fills with the sound of metal on metal, screaming, and the ancient equivalent of "this is fine" internal monologues. What Hannibal has created is not a battle. It's a meat grinder with extra steps. As the hours drag on, the Roman formation doesn't maneuver, it just shrinks. A compact ball of exhausted, dehydrated, terrified men being killed from all sides. There's no room to break out, no cavalry to smash through an opening, no clever tactic to rescue the situation. Consul Aemilius Paullus fights and dies somewhere in the chaos, buried under the disaster he tried to warn everyone about. Consul Varro, architect of this catastrophe, escapes with remnants of cavalry, maybe a few thousand survivors. It is, technically, the only thing he executes successfully all day. By the end, somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000 Romans are killed or captured. Senators, officers, allies, wiped out in a single day. The Romans wanted a decisive battle. They got one. News from Cannae does not arrive in Rome like a report. It arrives like a death wave. At first, there are rumors, a defeat, heavy losses. Then the casualty lists start coming in and they don't stop. 2 consular armies, most of Rome's military age elite, are gone. Entire aristocratic families are wiped out in a single battle. Some noble houses have no adult males left. The Mediterranean doesn't just say Rome lost a battle, it says Rome is finished. Inside the city, panic goes viral. Mothers, wives, and sisters crowd the streets, begging any returning soldier for news. People scan faces, armor, shields, looking for someone, anyone they know. In a move that is equal parts cold and genius, the Senate bans public displays of grief and mourning until the facts are fully known. No mass wailing, no coordinated despair. Rome basically says, we'll cry later, right now we have paperwork. At the center of this storm, Gaius Terentius Varro returns. This is the man whose aggressive "I got this" strategy led 80,000 men into the world's most lethal group hug. And yet when he rides back into Rome, the Senate does something absolutely insane. They thank him. The official line, "You did not lose hope in the Republic." The subtext, "We need living commanders more than we need someone to throw under the bus right now." Meanwhile, out in Italy, the shockwave of Cannae hits the Allies. Cities like Capua and others decide that maybe Rome isn't the safe bet anymore. Some defect to Hannibal, others sit on the fence. For a moment, it really looks like the map of Italy is about to redraw itself in Carthaginian teal. Hannibal, camped victoriously in southern Italy, has just handed Rome the worst defeat in its history. He has killed or captured tens of thousands, shaken faith in Roman invincibility, and pulled allies away from the Republic. By every normal standard, he should have won the war at Cannae. So why is this not the end of the story? Hannibal has just turned a Roman army into a statistical tragedy. The field near Cannae is a carpet of shields, spears, and regret. Logically, this is the part of the movie where the villain marches on the capital and rolls the credits. According to later sources, Hannibal's brilliant cavalry commander Maharbal rode up after the battle, still spattered with Roman, and basically said, "Give me your cavalry, and in 5 days you'll be dining in Rome." And Hannibal says no. He doesn't march on Rome. To modern armchair generals and YouTube comments, this looks like the biggest missed opportunity since someone passed on buying cheap beachfront land. But Hannibal, unlike those comments, has to live in reality. His army is exhausted. They've been fighting, marching, foraging, and dodging Roman armies for years, far from home. They've just finished one of the most intense battles in ancient history in brutal southern Italian heat. Rome, meanwhile, is not just a city. It's a fortified monster with thick walls, reserves, and still more troops in other theaters. Hannibal has no siege train, no massive supply system, and no infinite respawns. Assaulting Rome's walls with a tired, mid-sized army could easily turn greatest victory into most embarrassing self-destruction. So instead, Hannibal goes with Plan B. Use the shock of Cannae to break Rome's alliance network. If enough Italian cities defect, Rome will suffocate without him touching the walls. And honestly, it nearly works. Big players like Capua flip to his side. Others start considering it. The Roman alliance system is wobbling like a bad Jenga tower. But here's the twist. Hannibal didn't just pick the wrong target. He picked the wrong enemy to expect a normal collapse from. Rome's superpower is not never loses. It's loses catastrophically and then refuses to die. Rome after Cannae looks like a state that should be writing surrender letters, not military orders. They've lost multiple armies in a few years, huge chunks of their aristocracy are gone, their big Italian allies are wobbling, Hannibal is still roaming around their backyard like a very smug panther. So what do? They raise more armies. They lower the wealth requirement for service. They arm teenagers. They even recruit slaves, promising freedom after service. They mint new coins to pay for it all. They do not sue for peace. They double down. Meanwhile, the surviving Roman leadership finally admits, okay, maybe the just run at Hannibal until he dies strategy isn't working. They dust off Fabius Maximus's old unpopular playbook. No more big-pitched battles with Hannibal. Shadow him, harass him, burn supplies, deny him, easy wins. Over the next years, Rome bleeds, but does not break. They slowly adapt. They rebuild their cavalry, especially with the help of Numidian allies later. They spread their forces, making it harder for Hannibal to smash everything at once. They shift the war to other theaters, Spain, Sicily, and eventually Africa, so Hannibal is no longer the only show in town. From the chaos, new Roman commanders rise. Most famously, Publius Cornelius Scipio, who as a young officer survived the disaster at Cannae and later took the fight to Spain and New Carthage, and finally to Zama. Here's the punchline history loves. Cannae is Rome's bloodiest defeat, but it becomes Rome's favorite classroom. For centuries after, Roman generals study Cannae as the ultimate "don't do this" cautionary tale, and also as the gold standard for encirclement tactics. Even in modern military academies, officers still learn about Hannibal's deployment on that hot August day. Hannibal gave the world a tactical masterpiece. He gave Rome its worst nightmare. And Rome, instead of collapsing, did what Rome does best. It wrote the bill in blood, and then made sure everyone else in history had to read it.